All right. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the very first in-person hybrid Huachuca Rocks LPD event. The subject for this afternoon is going to be what should I do next? And it's going to discuss a strategy to sequence mandatory and optional assignments. So before we begin, I am going to do some quick introductions of your host. We did not share our bios in advance, but we do want to make sure everyone knows who you're talking to. So I'm going to let my battle buddy here, Alvin Ward, go first, and then I'll follow behind.
So good afternoon, everyone online, and to the couple of individuals here in the room. My name is Alvin Ward. I'm a 2000 graduate from the University of Tennessee. It's where I earned my commission. And I've been an intel officer for the past 24 years, working principally in the special operations community, but then at the time of my selection for battalion command, I went into recruiting command. So that was my kind of my formative KD opportunity at the 05 level. But then I re-blued back into the big Army, going to the first multi-domain task force, where I was the first G2 for the first multi-domain task force, and recently graduated from the War College, and now I'm here as the deputy director for the CBA.
Doing great things, if I shall also say so myself. So I am Octavia Scott, year group 03, commissioned through Officer Candidate School. Something that I think is interesting is that I am not prior service. So I am what we call a college op. So I came from undergrad and straight into to OCS. And so I always think it's hilarious that the Army has continued to promote me and select me for some great jobs just based off that beginning. I have done several KD jobs in terms of as an MI officer for XO, S2, had the chance to do my joint time early on as a major. I am a satellite ILE product. And I say that because I know there's a stigma out there in terms of how successful you can be if you go through the satellite ILE. I am also battalion command, did command in 524 in my battalion out at in Korea. Counterintelligence and human intelligence, and currently just came out on the SSC principal list, so I will leave here and then go to SSC.
You had a great time.
I think so. It better. And so one thing Al and I will also share with you is that we do have personal lives, right? And so one of the things we're going to talk to you all about is how to achieve that balance and have success as in your professional career. So tell them a little bit about your personal consideration.
Yeah, so my personal demographics are I'm a married father of two. My wife is non-military. I actually met her later in life. So we've been married coming up on 10 years. Integrating a spouse into the military at a point where you're both already established professionals, it's probably a bit more challenging than marrying when you're younger, and it's just the natural growth and maturation as a married couple in this culture that the Army provides is a little different. Not wrong by any measure, but just different challenges. So she already had her identity, and it's being part of the Army is something that has taken a lot of personal, individual, and collective growth in our marriage to make sure that we are prioritizing each other first, our marriage first. The career is what enables us to do the things that we want to do. Now, I still feel this as a calling, as a passion, but it will not supersede my role as a husband, and then my kids come second.
Yeah.
As a father of two young ones, 7 and 5, I want to be an active participant in the activities that bring them joy. So what Octavia was talking about, finding that work-life balance. You have to know what your priorities are before you can find the balance. If you don't know what those are, then you'll say yes to just about anything that pops up in front of you. But that's kind of our dynamics.
Thank you. I think it's important for people to know that senior leaders have lives and that they prioritize their life, and you have to speak it and you have to own it. So it's important to say that. Now, I will share with you, at one point, I was married, no longer married. And I'm okay with that decision. I have a 23-year-old son who is, navigating adulthood. And my personal considerations also include, I'm a member of a sorority. I do extensive bodybuilding, another subject for another day. And I'm also just,
Top 5 in the last competition, her first professional competition.
okay, keep going,
Top
all right. And I'm also very intentional about, you know, and I've also had, I will share with you all right now, some medical considerations throughout my career. Today is 1 October, which is the start of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I will tell you in 2017, I was not only going through a divorce, but I was going through breast cancer. And so it is, and we're going to talk about how all that matters with how you sequence your career. But the point of it all is to be very transparent early on. Now, if you can have two, you know, lieutenant colonel promoters talk very freely about their personal considerations and their professional success, then you also should use that as a model as well. And these are conversations that we're just not having with ourselves. We're having it with our senior leaders. So as a major, I'm talking to my battalion commander about the fact that I'm going through a divorce, that I have this breast cancer consideration. Right now, I talk to my senior rater about the fact, sir, I got to go on stage in a couple of weeks. So I got to pull off a couple things so that I can do that. So whole person is very important as we navigate our careers, both in terms of our mandatory and our broadening jobs. So I do want to talk to you all about why we use the terms mandatory versus optional. So if you look at 600-3, you aren't going to see those words. If you look at 600-25 for NCOs, you're not going to see those particular words. But I want you to know that anytime that you're doing a job that is not listed into one of those documents, it's optional. Some will call it broadening. I choose to call it optional. The Army expects us to do those key development jobs. For our warrant officers, you all don't have key development jobs, but you have important roles to serve at echelon and also to make sure that you are diversifying in that capacity. I would tell you throughout my career, from company grade to now, there is a warrant officer advisor, there's an NCO advisor. As I get older, I have a civilian advisor, and not to mention all of the single source elements as well. So I say that to say that it's very important that we embrace those responsibilities early on. Another thing I will tell you in terms of using the words mandatory versus KD is that, again, we want you to understand where you are assuming risk in your career and making sure that you're making an informed decision about what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So another thing that we want to talk to you all about is, what does success look like? Now, I cannot tell you what success looks like for CW2 Caldwell. I cannot tell you what success looks like for Major Drew. I cannot tell you what success looks like for anybody else. Because what Colonel Ward is going to talk to us about, like, we all have considerations that are important. But I can tell you what the promotion selection board says is success. I can tell you what those key selection boards in terms of ILE, et cetera, what they're saying is success, and we all should know that information. If you have the slides, we are going to go over to the one that talks about what you need to know.
Yeah, so, excuse me, we jumped over one slide and we don't need to go back, but I will tell you what Octavia was saying is essentially that there is no single path to success. There are no silver bullet jobs out there that are going to guarantee you that you will have the career that you think you're going to have, that you want to have. What ultimately happens over the breadth of your career is that you put yourself in opportunities to solve your boss or your boss's problems. And that is what ultimately gets you recognized on paper, but then also later, you know, by reputation for other opportunities that will come. And I won't spend a whole lot of time on that. What you should know as you're navigating future opportunities is, first and foremost, exactly what Octavia said. You need to know what the literature, the doctrine that the Army has put out. And I use one example being 600-3. If you haven't looked at that, then you're probably already developing a strategy from a deficit, right? This will lay out clearly what the Army considers to be your KD and your broadening assignments, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute, but there are some other things. So you have the board trends. If you're not engaging with your assignment manager, whether it's your enlisted assignment manager, your warrant officer assignment manager, or even your branch officer, assignment manager, again, you're putting yourself in a position of risk because you don't know what the trends are. That doesn't mean that what happens next year is the same thing that's going to happen the previous year. But while history doesn't repeat itself, it tends to echo and rhyme. So you can see what the likelihood of your success or your potential for being selected is going to be based off of the opportunities you pursue and the write-ups that you get.
So I'm going to be very transparent. I was a post-KD major before I ever reached out to HRC and said, tell me what my file looks like. Tell me the job that I should be doing. Never had that discussion as a company grade. And that was not the right answer. And so if you are thinking about making a decision about your career, that has to start from a place of being informed. The people that can inform you are your career managers, right? And their job is to provide you with that file assessment.
I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I wear my assignment managers out. I don't just do it for myself. I do it for my subordinates and my peers that I'm calling on their behalf. You know, and once upon a time, she was my assignment manager, and I was on the phone with her quite a bit during that period. But that's a testament to, if they know who you are, they're not that they're going to be dispassionate about your circumstances. You know, if you don't reach out to them, but they're going to be more sympathetic if they know who you are, know what your circumstances are, and try to fit you into the best opportunity that accommodates where you are in your career. So you've got to have that early engagement, often engagement, and then you got to be transparent. You got to let them know what your aspirations are, what your limitations are, or at least your concerns. And then one other thing, just on the far left of the slide, if you're looking at it, you need to know what Army senior leadership kind of says, what they're speaking out there. Like, they may not put that down on paper, and you shouldn't expect them to often, because doctrine is going to tell you one thing: policies, the ADPs and the DAPAMs. The other things, when Army senior leaders tell you, hey, this might be something you want to consider, they might be giving you mentorship, but it's in an unspoken way. They're not there to disadvantage you. That's the baseline of what you should know, is what the Army says you should do. I think the most important thing is, what do you want your career to look like? So you have to know yourself. You know, not everybody aspires to have a 20-year career, and that's okay. But if you do, you need to be very deliberate and intentional in planning it out. And I can recall when I was a young lieutenant in Korea, I sat down, I was part of the 2nd Infantry Division headquarters, and my G2 at the time pulled me aside for one-on-one professional development session, and we did parallel tracks, like multiple parallel tracks, like if this then that type scenarios, and saying you could pursue this opportunity, but that might lead you here, and this opportunity, and that might lead you here. Not that any of it would be the gospel. You know, I couldn't take that to the bank, but it opened my eyes to different opportunities. And then if you say yes to this and you're saying no to these other things, the point being is you have to know yourself. You have to know what it is that you aspire to do, what it is you aspire to become. And I use a kind of a litmus test whenever now most of our decisions are taken from us because we're going to go where the Army tells us to go. But early on, when you had a little bit more influence on your career, I used 3 questions. You know, so what was the type of job that I wanted? Did I want to be a company commander? Did I want to be a battalion 2 or a brigade level 2? You know, I didn't say what unit first. I said, what type of job? And if I got that type of job, that was going to be awesome. I was going to get the experience I felt that I needed and I knew that I wanted. The second was the type of unit. So I knew that I wanted to be in the special operations community. So I pursued opportunities that pulled me into that and gave me the opportunity to do the job that I wanted. And then I chose the last was the location. Like, I knew where I wanted, what geographic area I wanted to focus on, what units aligned with that, and I pursued those opportunities. Now, those are the 3 questions you can ask yourself. You know, and the last question, if you have a family, is you need to ask, how does this benefit my family? Going back to that work-life balance point. If you're married, you really, really, really need to talk to your spouse and make sure you're on the same page. What you don't want to do is drag your family kicking and screaming just so you can have success. You know,
And conversely, if you're single, you have to factor in where there's that optimal time for you to start that family and for you to have those relationships. I did a coaching session with someone and they showed me their 5-year plan. And I looked at this 5-year plan, and if I didn't know this officer, I wouldn't know they had a wife, a daughter, and all kind of things, right? But they're just showing me, here are my military desires, here's my military aspirations. I need to know how this is going to impact your family so that I can advise accordingly. I care about whether or not your child can stay in the same school. I care about whether or not your spouse is getting ready to be up for a promotion. Sitting as a MI Lieutenant Colonel career manager for 2 years, there were 3 reasons people left the Army. 1, they culminated. At some point, we all will. We have reached our capacity to serve. More likely than not, it was for family. The other reason, it was the lack of family, right? And I'm telling you, across demographics, it's not just a male thing, it's not just a female thing, it's not a white, black, whatever. Across demographics, those are the reasons of people that leave the Army. And so if you back up and you say deliberately, and I'll ask you this question, when you had that touch point with the G2, did you initiate it or did the G2 initiate it?
so I've initiated all my counselors.
100%, right? I was hoping you would say that. I didn't know it. But it's important that you initiate those types of conversations, because that G2 was very willing to do it, right? But oftentimes we tell ourselves, our senior leaders don't have time, or they have too much to do. And I use an example of Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Ryan. Kevin Ryan is an awesome American. I was in MIPCC, and he was given a brief about the Congressional Fellowship Program, and he was participating in it. And I asked him a question, and he followed up with me after the engagement with that answer. And I share that because since then, he's gone on to Be Battalion Command, SSC, and all that good stuff. Every single time I reach out to someone and says, hey, I have someone that's interested in the Congressional Fellowship Program. Do you have time to talk to them? His response is, I have one philosophy, one rule on mentorship. I always make time for it. And so what you're doing when you don't initiate is you are leaving a resource that's not tapped. There's not one of us that will say, whether you're NCO, warrant, commissioned, civilian, et cetera, that won't make 15, 20 minutes to have those types of discussions.
Yeah, this is going to come up in one of our last slides if we use those as a guide. But the bottom line when it comes to mentorship, if you take interest in your own professional development and career progression, others will show interest as well. So, but you need to seek out, mentors of different backgrounds, right? You shouldn't just have one mentor. You should have I use this kind of in a post, but there should be kind of a mosaic of mentorship that happens in each individual's personal and professional development, because no one person has it all together. I talk to her on a regular basis, and she's not even my career manager anymore. And I do that with our other battle buddies that are here on Fort Huachuca. We do that up, we do that across. And if you have the relationship, you can even learn from your subordinates as well, because there's unique and very valuable perspective that those who are younger than you and coming back, retreading your footsteps, that they may see something that you've missed, and you would do well to pull up some of the perspectives from your leaders.
Here's something, if I had to have a call to action for anybody, I would tell you to start building your network early on. So there's a responsibility that anybody that engages with me as a Lieutenant Colonel promotable is they're not just engaging with me, they are engaging with my entire network. So if I only bring Octavia Scott to bear to that mentor-mentee relationship, I have failed, right? Because I should be able to call my combat arms, I should be able to call my sustainment, I should be able to call all of my battle buddies across the warfighting functions and get answers and provide resources. But all too often, we get in our zone and we focus on ourselves and we don't do relationships well. But it is if you have an intention to stay in the Army for longer than a day, you got to build a network. You got to be intentional about that network, because we all have this we're low-key intimidated of people, whether they are the same rank as us, they're junior to us, they're senior to us, and I don't get it. But we have to be intentional about developing those relationships across warfighting functions, across ranks, across all types of demographics.
I'll put one more point on the building your network piece. That is something that is very near and dear to my heart. The time to start building your network is not when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
So who here, and I know at least 3 people are probably aware of it, if not in it, who here is in the marketplace right now? Right? Okay, so nobody is, but you know what it is, right? And you know that you are reaching out and saying, hey, what do you think about this? These are my options. Do you know anybody there? The time to start plowing that ground is not during the marketplace. You have got to do that weeks and months and years in advance. I'm still fielding phone calls from folks who were my captains when I was a major to talk about opportunities that they are seeing in the marketplace and how they should look at those and what is it something worth considering. Hopefully a few of them are dialed in here. They could benefit from some of these points. One
of the things that I enjoy doing the most is sending out messages of endorsement. So if I know that I have a mentee that is interested in an assignment, and it never fails that the mentee is always surprised I can do that. That I can email a battalion brigade commander and say, hey, I endorse this person. If you bring them to your formation, you will not lose. And it's never long. It's just a simple message to say, hey, someone's looking out for that person. And then, yep. Oh, wow. But I'm telling you, again, that works because I'm not a perfect officer. I'm not a perfect human, but my reputation is strong enough so that if there is a message from Octavia Scott in your inbox, one, you're going to open it. And you're going to pay a little bit of attention to whatever is in it. But if I'm not that person, then it's just one more message in an inbox that, none of these people are just waiting on people to reach out to them, right? And so I think we have one, but that has to start with having that relationship with your mentee, a mentor, to tell them that these are the things you're interested in doing. And then to that call to action for that sponsor, that mentor, to follow up with them. But again, you can't start doing that today.
Your network is what you will live and die by professionally. So you should not only start early and continue along your career, but this doesn't mean, be mean about it, but you should also be very selective about those who bring into your innermost circles. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that everyone's got bad information out there, or it's some, but you need to know, goes back to knowing yourself. You want those who are truly have your best interest and give you candid, unadulterated advice. And sometimes it may hurt, but that's okay. If you are able to see your blind spots and your own limitations, that's either going to inspire you to do something to fix it, or you're going to pursue something different.
100%. And the fact that you have this is an LPD about success, but we just spent at least 10 minutes talking about relationships. Cue in on that. Don't let that go over your head, right? Those two things are connected. Like, you cannot be successful operating alone. Sure. And there is other people that are involved in those relationships, but I will tell you upfront, I did not do relationships well. I was the one, if we have a hail and farewell, it is 100% mandatory fun. It is fun that I must attend, right? But then I get to the point where I'm planning the hail and farewells. And when I get to the hail and farewell, I'm staying for the discussions. If I am initiating contact, and it is those types of things that really, our goal over time is to distinguish ourselves in a positive manner. Not just distinguish yourself, but distinguish yourself in a positive manner. And relationships are going to be at the cornerstone of how we do that. So we want to talk about, again, the sequencing of the jobs. Here's my philosophy on sequencing jobs. There are periods where you have to surge, and you got to have those hard discussions with yourself and your family to know, I am going to have to grow very hard for the next 2 to 3 years. And there are times when not take a knee. I do not believe in the whole take a knee thing, but there are times when you have a higher likelihood of balance. And you can achieve that by echelon or by assignments. So I would tell you, if you are the senior warrant officer advisor to someone, you are a surgeon, right? But if you are working as a single source tech, or you're just focused on your technician days, you have more likelihood of a balance. If you are in a company command or S3, SO job, you're a surgeon. You're a surgeon. If you are in, I'm not gonna say certain jobs because y'all get me in trouble, but other positions are more conducive to balance. I believe you owe it to yourself to be intentional about putting in those periods and not waiting on HRC to say, because HRC, you're a surgeon your whole career, and you'll be the one that's saying, okay, I'm ready to go because I did not achieve that balance. What do you think?
So we've talked about this quite a bit. I have a slightly different approach, not by much, but enough that it's important to note. First, I don't think there's anything such as KD complete. If you say the words out, key developmental, every job that you do will be developmental in some way, shape, or form. So I don't think there's any such thing as that. I also don't think that we should, look at broadening as, well, I've got to go do a broadening job. You can broaden and do KD at the same time. I personally believe that broadening is done at echelon. So if you're a major, you're expected to be at the battalion and brigade level formations, and maybe even in the division. If you wanted to broaden, you should be looking at maybe Corps or Army or something along those lines. Same thing for a captain. You're a company grade officer, so you're in a company or a battalion and maybe a brigade. If you wanted to broaden, look a couple of echelons higher, and then that could kind of open up opportunities for you to still get jobs that align with 600-3 below that hard line, but then you're getting exposure to the way that the Army or a theater or even the bigger Army, the Army does business. So I think that we need to take a different look on how we pursue KD and broadening. But I will also say that I think you should always be pursuing KD as it aligns with 600-3, whether it's the hard KD above the line or the soft KD that's below the line. What most people conflate is that KD equals ready for promotion. That if you've got your 12 or 24 months in KD, you're ready for promotion. That's not always the case. I think that there used to be a term called branch qualification, and I think that's where we identify when an individual is ready for promotion, is that they have hit all of the gates, not just the jobs, but they have shown that professional maturation and the personal evolution that from going from one grade to the next, and that they are ready. They're already performing. They need to be recognized.
Sir, how are you? Such a pleasure for you to be with us this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. I would like to either open give the opportunity to provide comments now or at the end, subject to you, sir. Okay, so here's what I want to talk to y'all about. Sequencing, right? And you talk about boards as well. So what job should you take when you are a year or 2 years out from your next PSB, from your next promotion selection board? What type of jobs should you be in? Should you be in like mandatory or KD jobs, or should you be in broadening the jobs leading up to a board? KD.
Anybody want to say why?
I feel like for one off, we don't necessarily see it as KD or broadening, because like you said, every assignment broadening some way, shape, form, or fashion. However, essentially, isn't it all, from our aspect, isn't it all like key development?
It is. But I'll tell you, the closer you get to your board, you have got to be more intentional about what echelon you're working at and in what that title is and the influence. And for the warrant officers, I want to talk about in terms of key development, I was talking about in terms of influence. When you are closer to your promotion boards, you need to be in jobs where you have greater influence. Because those are the jobs that are going to get you those that are going to set you apart from your peers. So as a battalion commander, my senior warrant, my senior QMIT, my senior techs are going to be different than my field office SACs, right? Just because of their influence. They are that much more closer to me. Same thing for my NCOs. My first sergeant, my debt sergeant, it's going to be a little bit, more influence than mine S3 NYC. All important jobs. But when you talk about how you develop your rating scheme and philosophy, influence will become a factor if all other things are equal. So it's important to think about. For those commissioned officers, I'm telling you right now, as you approach your boards, you want to be in key development assignments.
How does as someone who's worked at HRC before, what is the order in which boards look at your eval? Yeah. So there's this philosophy that, we do analysis on top 5, on your most recent 5. Boards can look at your entire file, right? They have access to everything from the time, which we all know this because we certify a board file and it's everything in it. It's definitely more than 5 evals that's in it. But what they look and the difference about the boards is that every member, we know it's different, right? They care about different things and no one can ever tell you that this is what the board thinks and this is what the board did because nobody is talking to the board members afterwards. They are signing those NDAs and they are not talking. You don't know who they are. We don't even know who they are. So anytime you look at, trend analysis and things of that nature, to your point early on, is not predictive of what's going to happen next year, but it's a good reference point. But what I would tell you, you do want your strongest on top. That's right. You do not want to go into that board with something that is, less than top block. With that said, when we talk about success and evals, everybody on a board understands what an immature profile is. Everybody on a board understands they can see the nuances between the narrative and the box check. So not all top blocks are created equal. Let's be clear on that. If that narrative and that top block are not matching, the board will see. So I think it's important as we talk about relationships, jobs and sequencing that we always look at it from the perspective of when that PSB is. And if you are walking around as someone and you don't know when you are going before your next board, problematic. I can tell you right now, I don't know what my next board is, but that's a different story. But that's just because I just got through one. But subject, unless you are lieutenant colonel promotable, you should know when your next board is. So, all right, what else we got to talk about? Let's talk about what you can, the importance of that initial counseling. So one thing that I was always intentional about and that I take a great deal of pride in is that as a battalion commander, no one left my formation. And if you're a member of 524, I challenge you to come on the net and prove me wrong. But no one left that formation surprised about their eval. Not an NCO, not a MyStep civilian, not an officer, not a warrant officer, not one. Because I was very deliberate about having initial counselings. My service members were very deliberate about scheduling those quarterly counseling, and we 100% had closeout counselings. So one, you're not chasing me down for an eval while I'm on leave. Not doing it. and two, you know my philosophy. You know my senior rated philosophy. You know what equals a top block to me. It's not going to be a surprise. And I think as we think about our responsibility as raters and senior raters, it is our responsibility to have that initial counseling. It is the rated person's responsibility to make sure they're having those quarterly. It goes back to us to make sure we have those closeouts. Yeah. But all too often, as a mentor, I'll get
or not even a mentor, because my mentees don't do this, but someone will send me a eval to review, and my question to them is, what was your initial counseling like? What support form did you submit? And it's always, well, we didn't have the initial counseling. Wrong answer.
Even though it's the senior's responsibility to provide the initial and the closeout. If you're not getting that and not getting that in a timely fashion, you should definitely take action and request it. I encourage all of my juniors to go talk with their senior rater early and often. Do it early, because if there are concerns or he or she is not aware of the work that's being done. Like, I mean, your seniors at this point, right, for us, are going to be general officers. They have a lot on their plate, and they may not be aware of everything that you're doing that needs to be captured in an evaluation. So having an opportunity to sit down with them, being respectful of their time, 20, 30 minutes, just to kind of gauge their understanding of your contributions to his or her formation. And then, seek out a little bit of guidance. It's a good opportunity to get some very ad hoc mentorship, from someone who's already been in your shoes, and maybe also able to give you some insight on where the organization is going and how you can, be part of the success of it. So that kind of goes back to the being intentional with your counseling, seeking it out, scheduling it. Everybody, we have our responsibilities. We know our responsibilities. But sometimes people get overwhelmed and things can fall through the cracks. Not an excuse, just a recognition of reality. And you can bridge that gap by taking a personal interest in your own.
I will tell you right now, 3 of my 5 evals as a major, I was senior rated by a GO. And 2 of those, either a GO or a SES, those in my 2 of the ones with the GOs, I was in a joint job, which is like, the likelihood of getting MQs in those jobs are very, very hard. And then also the other one with the SES, I was at the State Department. So I was an interagency fellowship. Again, there's thoughts on how, folks write evals and things of that nature. But I share that with you because I knew my senior rater's EA, and I would send her a note like, hey, can I get an office call with General Ballard, Major General type? And she's like, okay, we'll lock you in. That thing changed 5 times. 5 times. And do you think I said after the 3rd one, oh, don't worry about it, it's okay? No, reschedule me. I don't care if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes. Like, I want that talk. And another way you can do it in terms of calling it, an initial counseling, which, is very, very formal. My philosophy in the battalion command was I didn't do initial counseling the first time I met you. It was an office call. And so in that office call, we're talking about family, we're talking about, just personal stuff. And then we have initial counseling. And the difference is because that initial office call is 15 minutes. That initial counseling is 45 minutes. And so by the time that I'm allocating, I'm sending the message about, when is formal, when is informal. And so I think we have to be intentional about building that rapport and knowing that rapport is important as seniors. And we don't always focus on that. The narrative is always, I did my job. Awesome. Okay. Another thing we wanted to talk about, where are we?
Just 40 minutes.
Okay, good. We have those that are MI and those that are like, we have what we call the bod. Who knows what the bod is? Nobody should know that, because that's an acronym. It's called board of directors, right? And so every branch, I will argue, has a bod.
Officially or unofficially?
Officially or unofficially. And when I'm thinking, you got 2 echelons of bod. One is like at the Army senior leader, where we're talking like stars and shenanigans. And the other is at the installation level, which is generally going to be your 06s and some of your lieutenant colonels that are in CSL positions. Unless you're a member of the bod, you have to have a touch point with them. The best way that I tell my folks is to develop a letter introduction. A letter introduction that you send to the members of the bod prior to your arrival. And the letter introduction is not 10 pages. It is a single page document that talks about, one, this is who I am. Here are my interests. Here are my considerations. So you got a paragraph about professional background, professional interests, and your family. And then you're out of there. And the only thing you want to accomplish is that the next time they see your name, they have a point of reference. That's your only objective. And in some cases, that bod is, again, a colonel 05. Sometimes that bod is GL. And you have got to be just intentional as with sending those letter introductions across echelons.
Yeah, I would, I'm gonna make 2 points and I'm gonna tie these things together with some previous points that we made. The first, Octavia is right, you need to know who the bod is. And I'm talking about the Army Senior Leadership bod, not the Council of Colonels that we often refer to. But the general officers for intel, that is the Army G2, that is the ICO CG, with General Applehans here. So the Army G2 being General Hill. And then that is General Brown over at INSCOM. Those three are the three principals. We have other MIGM officers throughout the formations, but those are the three big ones. So you need to know who they are. And equally, if not more important, is you need to know that they know who you are. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to go be a spotlight ranger or anything to get yourself visibility with them. Chances are they know who you are if you've done what you should have done years in advance by developing relationship, building your network. Because once upon a time, they were the lieutenant colonels and the majors in charge of battalions and brigades and so forth. That's where you are going to have that senior Army senior leadership visibility. They're going to know who you are, but then they also can provide guidance, direction, and then in some cases they may be able to provide influence for you, opening up opportunities for you. And certainly I've benefited from relationships with members of them, but it's still incumbent. Just because you know the current ones doesn't mean that you can just rest on your laurels. You need to cultivate relationships with those who are likely to be future bod members, like, I don't know, this lady right here could be easily, but you don't know who it's going to be. So developing a broad and deep network is critical, because one of those individuals is likely to be a senior leader, whether it's an 06 or even beyond, in the flag officer competition.
100%. And it goes back to the sequencing of in your jobs, because who's controlling your assignment? Is it HRC? No. HRC is getting you to an installation, but name, take, definitely to position, that is a bod act. And if you are not a known entity during those discussions, you're probably senior leaders, we want to know what you want. Because to the best of our ability, we want to give you what you want, unless it would disadvantage you and you don't know it would disadvantage you at which point it's going to drive a discussion. HRC does as well, but HRC will not assign you to a position unless it's nominative, unless it's joint, or unless it is like a utilization. Those are really probably the only 3 times when HRC is going to say you will go to this job. Otherwise, it's going to be installation, bod, assignment. And so we have to have that into consideration as well. So I have what I call my money slide.
I like this one.
So it is called the key actions during the rating cycle. And as a battalion commander, I had an LPD, and by LPD, I mean my NCOs, my warrants, my commission, my MySELPs, civilians, military civilian accepted career program. And all of them, we created shared understanding about our expectations. And I share this with my mentees, because one, as we were saying earlier, it's our responsibility to make sure things happen. It could be, okay. So start on the far left, right? So what happens at the start of the rating period, during the rating period, end of the rating period, and after the rating period. And across the top, you have the three individuals, the rated individual, the rater, and the senior rater. And the things that I would just highlight on this, at the start of the rating period, who has ever seen their rating scheme? Okay. I think if I were to, do a poll, there are people out there who have never seen their rating scheme, which is why you start off thinking somebody's rating you and somebody's senior rating you. And then by the time the eval comes around, you're like, this isn't who I thought I rated. That rating scheme is a contract, and which is why and that's literally the word I use with my battalion S1. Me signing a rating scheme every month is me entering a contract with my soldiers, telling them, you can know who is going to rate you, who is going to senior rate you. And if that changes, that's a discussion with me, right? No, that's not anyone else. And because my formation did have civilians in the rating scheme, and it did have, in some cases, warrant officers, of course, it was important, again, that everybody has shared understanding. And oh, by the way, I had 6 different field offices. So it was important that the messaging was clear across the board so that it wasn't, everybody knew who their person was. So I emphasize that at the start of the rating period, you have to know your rating scheme. It should be posted somewhere. It should be signed by a battalion commander or above. And if that is not happening, it means that. And other.
One other point on that, you shouldn't be just willy-nilly transferred from one rater to the next rater. If there's a need to do that, then everybody should be part of the same conversation. But if there's a need to do that, if you are changing raters, you're due a change of rater evaluation, right? So don't let yourself be put in an awkward position when it comes to evaluation time.
Yeah.
Just because it's inconvenient for your seniors.
Yeah.
Right. Octavia said the right word. It's a contract between you, your rater, and your senior rater. You can't influence the timing, but you can influence basically holding to the contract that was established when you first arrived.
100%. And it's honestly not fair. It's not fair to think one thing and then to end up with a paper with people that you've had no contact. Not initial counseling, not a closeout counseling, not anything. So to preempt all of that, as you go look at your mandatory board where everything is posted, if you don't see your rating scheme, it's a valid question. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm saying. And so if it's not initiated, requested. So I believe in having a leave behind folder with me whenever someone comes into an initial counseling. I asked them, and I'll use the example of my chaplain. So as battalion commander, I had never senior rated a chaplain before. So I asked him to bring in his promotion trends. I asked him to bring in like his equivalent of a words matter slide. So I kind of know. And I also asked him to provide me with a good POC that I could kind of like bounce his eval against. I already knew someone, like this was an 8th Army. So I knew the 8th Army chaplain, awesome colonel. She's phenomenal. But I wanted him to provide me someone that he trusted. And so when we are those low density MOSs, those low density folks, that's one of the ways that we can create shared understanding early on. Because otherwise we have this, they should know. Yeah, we should. That's to say we don't, right? It help us make an informed decision by sharing that information with us upfront. And the only other thing I will say about this is don't ask folks about their profile. Don't do it. At some point that was a thing. It's not a thing. And otherwise, don't ask for specific box text. It's what as people, we have to figure out how to frame information. It's one thing to say that Based on the timing of the board, this is what is commensurate with the trend. Here's where I am in association with that trend. I believe I'm at risk. It's a whole lot of ways you can send a message to say, I am in the market for an MQ without coming out and saying, can you make sure you give me an MQ? Anyway, all right.
Yeah, I agree. I'd never heard it put quite this way, don't ask about, box checks and profiles, but I do think that when you sit down with your rater, with your senior rater for initial counseling, that's an opportunity to kind of gauge what their profile looks like. I mean, and you'll be able to survey the formation, kind of see where others might be falling. That's not necessarily the end all be all, that's the population you're working against. It might be that some of them are rated by your senior rater and others are other senior ratees, right? But it'll give you a good gauge. But really what you should be doing is communicating up front with your rater, with your senior rater. Hey, I'm going into my primary zone look. I'm eager to serve. I'm gonna, give me your toughest problems and let me solve them, type thing. And then just deliver. When I was a battalion commander, I had my brigade commander used to ask our company commanders and the QTPs, do you know what your job is? What is your primary job? And they would give, something along the lines of, I've got to recruit this many folks and put, so forth and so on. It's like, that's great. That's the skin that's wrapped around your primary job. But your primary job is to solve your bosses and your boss's problems, right? And that is not unique to, talking to captains. That's everybody.
Yeah.
That's as true for you, Chief Caldwell, as it is for me, as it is for Octavia.
Yeah.
Everybody does that. And then when we're all doing the job that we're supposed to, things get taken care of. And some people might get a higher evaluation. We do have to enumerate, we do have to stratify our workforce. That's not an indictment on anybody. That's just an assessment.
Yeah.
Right. So I had a friend that always used to say, trust the process.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Advocate for yourself. There was a point that we did not make early on. When it comes to career management, you know who your career manager is? Who? What's his or her name?
So I did have, I can't recall the name of the change.
It's on your right name strip. You are your best career manager, right? You are your best advocate. So when we talk about evaluations, I know Octavia spent a lot of time on this. You need to make sure that when it comes time for your evaluation, you better put some emphasis on your support form.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, your rater or senior rater may not have been in a position to observe all of the good things that you've done.
Yeah.
Capture that in the support form, whether that's on the actual form, which it should be because that's how things are generated now in EES. Yeah. At a minimum, put it on an MFA.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's important in terms of the profile. Like my philosophy, when I do my initial counseling, I tell people upfront, I believe in the strength of a narrative. So I don't believe that the only way I can signal success is through a box check. I believe that I can use my narrative, especially in those cases where I have an immature profile. I mean, shoot, NCO is daggone what, 23, 24%?
24%.
24%. So there are a ton of Song First classes that are going to come through my profile that I just won't have it to give. But my narrative will absolutely send a message that if I did, I would. So I think it's important for us to know that, one, unless there's something adverse going on, derog of sorts, all of us want to do our best to take care of our people, especially if you've been growing hard. Like they're even, how should I say, my least performing folks, I still want to create space for them to recover in a future assignment. So I am not in a place where I ever want to quote unquote destroy someone. You always want to err on the side of caution. Yeah. But there are some times where we need more reps and sets. And I've had assignments where I needed more reps and sets, and we all have them in, and we got to know that there's going to be a certain box check and narrative associated with those performances. All right, and the only thing I'll close out with on this particular slide is the rating scheme doesn't end, once you submit that report into EES. Because we know there are misfires, we know there are returns, we know there are things that we have to fix once the eval happens. But the best way we can do to avoid all that is like part of this LPD, it included like the codes, the non-rated codes, right? If you have your initial counseling and you go in and you say, hey, I know I have 30 days of, in transit, I have some senior rater qualification time, and manage those non-rated codes, it reduces the likelihood that something is going to be returned. There is no instance where a rater should talk about potential. Shouldn't exist. Like at no point should a rater say this person will serve, just don't use anything, focus on performance. And there are some of the other was just back when we were doing the ACFT, like not missing, like putting the right language and things of that nature. There are some easy things, but if you are the rated soldier, the rater, the senior rater, we have to pay due diligence to those returned evals so that we can get them closed out. If those of you are you familiar with like the EES portal for evals? If you're not, go ahead and become acquainted with it, because that lets you know the from and through dates of everybody that, in your information. So, and you can kind of see, because even if that from date is off by a day, it can sometimes impact non-rated codes and things of that nature. So that was something that I did. I continue to make sure I have access to the EES. But the purpose of this is one, to just set expectations and manage expectations early on, and to support the end game of no one leaving surprised by their eval. Because at the end of every assignment, it's either going to produce an AER or OER or IntoER. And you got to make sure there are no surprises on that. All right. I think we have covered quite a bit. Do we have any questions at all? If not, I got a scenario I want to discuss.
You have one question.
Yes.
It came from earlier when you were talking about when you go into a board, have those like front load really those MQs, those like hot board assignments, KD, things of that sort. So someone in the audience asks, how does that work? If you communicate you're being looked at promotion but serving improv.
Yeah, so here's my philosophy on this, and it's going to sound like a contradiction. I'm okay with sounding like a contradiction. It's not, right? I am not a believer in showing my past eval to my current rating chain. I don't do it, right? I don't ask for them. My entire time as a battalion commander, I never asked for anyone to show me their evals. People will hear that I worked at HRC. They will ask for a file evaluation. I will do that 100%, but I'm not going to ask for that. But I share that to say, if you're in a broadening job, going up to a board, one, try to avoid it. But if you are in that situation, it's important for you to have that discussion about whether or not you are on trend for promotion. If you are going into a broadening job and you are on trend, here's the last PSB analysis. If it's saying 5 or 5 is what's going to get me promoted, I'm currently at 4 or 5. Hint, hint, hint. You know what I mean? Then you're good. But if I'm going in at 2 or 5, 3 or 5, I'm on the bubble, I'm at risk. That's a valid discussion that you need to have. So it goes back to one, before you go into a broadening job, specifically before a PSB, you got to know what your manner of performance is. You have to communicate that manner of performance, and you have to know that there is a level of risk associated. I would never advise anyone to go into a broadening job headed up to a PSB, because again, with that same limited profile, it's going to happen. Like, you have to look at who's serving in that KD job, who's serving in broadening. And there's going to be an instance where that KD job is going to win out. Sorry. All right. So that was actually gonna be the scenario I was gonna talk about, like, what happens if you are at risk going into a primary promotion zone? I think, as you think about jobs that you take at that point, it has to be one where you are set up for success. It can't be one where, and by those jobs, I do believe, one, you're gonna have a lot of influence, and there's a large pool of folks that where it's a possibility of getting that interview. And Branch has a pretty good method of saying, hey, here are some recommendations for you, but you gotta know. Another thing is, I know we talked about like whether you should even do broaden the jobs. And this is just an instance where, you know, it's okay to have like different perspectives. I do believe that at some point you gotta create that space for balance, and broadening jobs or optional jobs are the best time to do it. So otherwise we burn out. All right, I'm okay with if there are no other questions, I think we covered everything.
I have a bit of punctuation that I want to put on this conversation that I would be remiss if I didn't share with you guys. So if you've got access to the slides, you can look at it. It's the next to last one, is slide number 7.
Yeah.
If you don't, that's fine. I'm going to give you kind of what my big takeaway on this one is. A lot of these we've already discussed, but there are a few things that you can absolutely control that if you put your due diligence against these things, you will at least give yourself a better chance of being successful. And I'll start with probably the most important. The number one thing, or number one top things that you can control are your attitude, your work ethic, and your integrity. Right? All these things put together, they equal your character and your reputation. Character is what you have, reputation is what others see that you have. Right? These are things that, you know, your choices that you make will directly influence these, and make no mistake, others are watching. Juniors are watching you, peers are watching you, seniors are watching you. They want to know if you're someone that they will follow, that they will stand beside, or that they can go to and give the hardest jobs, you know, to solve. These things are priceless. If you want to talk about opportunities to go serve at broadening opportunities, where you're going to get a Katie job, or you're going to be, you know, presented with something that is unique, but they're still going to take care of you. It's going to be based on your reputation. So protect that like it's the only thing that matters. The next thing is you need to know your value proposition, and you need to be communicating that. So if a senior, particularly in this case, maybe a senior rater, but maybe not your senior rater, but that level, so 2 levels higher, is looking for someone to take on a project for him or her, be ready to take it. I mean, if you're a problem solver, you should be solving problems. Okay, so just be ready for those opportunities. Know your value proposition and say, here I am, send me. All right. And then the last one is, we've talked a lot about it up front, but I think it's worth landing on this. Mentorship matters. Build your network, leverage it, employ it early and often. If nothing else, just to give perspective. And to see if you are on the right aspect, to see if your trend lines are in line with, you know, the Army's trend lines, or, you know, if what your family wants is in line with your professional relations. Seek out others. Right? You do those 3 things, and those are things that you can absolutely control. You do those 3 things, you will find opportunity and plenty. You will never be lacking. And then it becomes less of an issue between mandatory and optional assignments.
I love it. I co-sign all of it. And here's what I will share with you. The best thing that we can do as members of an organization is to know our leadership's vision and our priorities. My most successful warrant officers were always the one that knew where I wanted to go with the organization. And they would use their relationships to create those opportunities to enable my vision. They were the ones that understood what my priorities were and when I was going to run out of resources. And they would either one, advise me that I was getting ready to run out of resources so I can, be ready to assume some risk, or they would create opportunities for me to not do that, right? But they have to be able to know that vision, know my priorities, and know that the world won't end when they come and tell me something that they think I don't want to know, right? We're senior leaders. We are supposed to be able to handle risk. We shouldn't be risk averse. We shouldn't expect everything to work out every single time. And what I will tell you, the secret to success that I believe 100% is not, are we recording this?
Come on, you done open it up. They're waiting.
It's not competence, it's confidence. I am very seldom the most competent person, but I am generally one of the most confident. And people, they want that around them. Like, they don't want those folks that are filled with anxiety, that are risk averse, that are all those things, which goes back to our point about balance, right? And so I recharge when I go do a bodybuilding competition. I recharge when I have a chance to go to Georgia and hang out with my kid. And then I come back and I'm a better officer because of those things, as opposed to my peers that are just roaring, and then just complaining, but not doing anything, not being intentional about their balance, but being intentional about complaining. But that also goes to being able to have a discussion with my rater, senior rater, both of them, about, here are some things that I need from you. I need you to create space for me to break contact for X amount of time so that I can do something that is important to me. But if I'm not communicating with that and I'm just like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, I can do everything. I can do it all. Not realistic, and it's not sustainable. And we have to create relationships and networks where we can have those types of discussions. So I think that is important. And if you're not confident, and if you are easily intimidated by others, that's a you thing. Don't project that onto someone else. I am a believer in all things behavioral health. You can't go through breast cancer and a divorce and not be. I'm a believer in all things in terms of phoning a friend. If I don't know the answer, I can get to somebody that does relatively quickly, and they're going to answer when I call. And we can't take that for granted at all. Did you say there were some other questions over there?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I have.
What is it?
Cindy?
So, I do really agree with like the engaging your rater and senior rater. This is not a use case of mine, but I was just thinking about hypotheticals in my head.
Yeah.
So say if the rated individual was engaging their rater and senior rater on a quarterly or even monthly basis,
Yeah.
trying to get that engagement, and that engagement never came.
Mhm.
Say they did all the right things, fill out the support form, sent emails,
Yeah.
tried these like touch points, but never got that guidance or that just that engagement.
Mhm.
How would you like to navigate that situation with things that you can't control? You control your side, but not really the others.
Well, here's what I will say. Because I'm guilty of not responding to messages. My thing is, did you send a follow-up? Because what happens is that someone will send a message, they will do it one time, and they will say, well, the person didn't respond, and I didn't want to bother them, or they were busy. I was like, give them a professional courtesy to say, they're human, send a follow-up. And did you try different methods? I will tell you, and I stand on this on everything. The key to me is through my sergeant major. It's through my sergeant major, right? And I don't care if you're a warrant officer, commission officer, NCO, or whatever. If you want to get to me, get through my sergeant major. And did you utilize the advisors of that person? Or was it a point-to-point situation? At a certain point, we don't control our calendars, and realistically. And so the whole time I was working with that GO, I didn't go to the GO and ask for the initial counseling. I went to his EA. And that's the person that's controlling the calendar. And then if all of those things are not happening, most people have open door policy. Use it. and just give them the opportunity to fix themselves. And because when it's all said and done, every day you operate without knowing what that person's rating philosophy is, every day you operate not knowing their vision and their priorities, you're the one that's putting your career at risk. They are already there. So utilize their network, send follow-ups, open door policy. I gotta believe that's gonna get it.
I agree with you on the open door policy. A practice that I take, and this takes persistent and consistent communication. So I will tell folks that if I'm in my office and the door is open, you can come and use it. Right? It doesn't have to be about a problem that you're having. If you just need to talk or want to talk, it's okay. If I tell you I'm in the middle of something, I'll put my finger up on the type and it's like, let me finish my thought. And then I will step around to my desk, sit down at the table, give them my undivided attention. But the open door policy is absolutely something that you can and should remember and utilize. I also encourage, whenever I go to a new assignment with as much people as I can possibly do, I share my calendar, right? And then it is okay for you to ask for me to share my calendar with you. I may not give you all of the details, but at a minimum, you will be able to see where there is white space, right? And if there is white space, you can use it. Request a meeting through it. So just, Outlook is a tremendous tool for this. Just send a calendar invite. Once it's accepted, it's there. But ask for access to a calendar especially if you're trying to get on someone's calendar. Okay?
And that 100% worked for me. Like the reason my quarterly counselings work is because I had my folks initiated with that calendar invite. So I didn't have to do it.
The last trick that I would tell you, and Teams has created this, is I 100% bubble stalk. Right? If you're green, you're getting a phone call. And I don't do emails. I mean, I do emails because I have to do emails, but she knows this. She'll send me a chat and I'm immediately calling. Like I don't do the texting, I don't do the emailing. I want to talk with you. And if I have the opportunity, I will go see. But I bubble stalk to make sure that they're in their office. They should be in their office because you're not supposed to leave the cat in the reader and then leave it, right? So bubble stalk is a way of finding out if you can leverage someone's open door policy in a timely fashion.
100%. And I think that the key takeaway from all of this is that once you identify what success looks like for you and your family, it's a by any means necessary, as long as it's ethical, legal, and moral, to get after that, right? But when you are oriented towards that vision, it gives you the motivation to get through the different assignments over time. Like when I know, and I'll be completely transparent with you, my definition of success changed over time. One, as a captain, I didn't know that battalion command was a thing. Literally, I didn't know it was a thing. As a lieutenant, I didn't know 06 was. So you can't define something as success if you don't know that it is feasible, right? And so the more people that you have that you communicate with, your possibilities expand. And I'm a believer in that. And it's from like at some point I didn't know that my NCOs could apply for like fellowships, right? That was just ignorance on my end. And then I started hanging around some high-speed daggone NCOs, and they got there kicking butts and taking names. And same thing, with our warrant officers, like we have to be intentional about knowing what success looks like for our counterparts and how we can enable that success. But the other thing I will say is sometimes we need fixing as senior leaders, help us fix ourselves, give us the benefit of the doubt. But then, and just make sure, know that intentions are good, right? We literally want to make sure you are making informed decisions. My only goal through mentorship is to make sure folks make an informed decision and that they understand risk. And if you are going through your career and you're not having discussions about risk, and you're thinking that every job will present, optimal results for you, I don't know what world you're in, but it's not the real world. So there is an element of risk associated with almost any job. And you have to know the people who can help you visualize that risk and who can help you mitigate that risk. So those are my asks. Be confident in all situations. Expand your network now and early. Make informed decisions. Have discussions about risk. If you are doing those things, it will get you closer to your definition of success. All right, my bad. All right, if there are no other questions, is General Ward on the line?
Yes, ma'am.
May I, General Ward, sir, may I give you the opportunity to take the floor and make any closing comments for us?
Hey, team, well, I will, and I was hesitant at the beginning because I didn't want to interfere with what I knew would be a wonderful discussion between you and Word there. Really fascinating and insightful job that you've done there. Let me congratulate you and all those who are participating in this LPD. Surely will benefit from what you two have delivered. As I reflect back upon my career, what I heard you two talk about wasn't being said. I know I wasn't saying it 36 years ago when I commanded my battalion, nor 32 years ago when I commanded my brigade, nor 25 years ago when I commanded my division. And the fact that through the rocks, these LPDs are delivering the type of guidance, advice, and things that will cause young non-commissioned officers, warrant officers, commissioned officers to navigate their journeys in a more effective way. I commend and congratulate you on that. Well done with that. I thank Chief Newsom for continuing to invite me to the Huachuca Rocks program, because it's something that I think I learn as much as anyone else as I listen in on these sessions. EES and what that means. They weren't calling that stuff EES in my days. Same function, but they had different names. KD jobs, they were branch qualifying jobs in those days, and it's kind of the same thing. Look at, you call these broadening jobs. I like that term, because when I got those things that were broadening jobs, I thought I said, what in the world? Who did I make mad to get this job? But one thing about those jobs, in the end, they all pay off. I can't tell you the number of quote unquote broadening jobs that I had that later on in my career, that experience was so beneficial, as I was able to continue to take care of my soldiers, my civilians, as well as my family members. So those critically important as well. The point about controlling the things that you can, absolutely. And you have to believe in yourself. I really like that, because when it comes down to it, that's the thing that will cause you to be successful. You walk around with your head down because you are not sure, you don't have confidence, and you know that is not the road to success. And that really gets back to our old Army saying that was when I was a young soldier, being all that you can be. You got to be able to understand where you are and then do all that you can to move forward from the position that you're in. So really, really impressive points that you raised and you made. I like that little matrix you had there with respect to that chart. Although many practice those same things, having it there in front of you is clearly something that makes a difference in moving forward. So congratulations on all of that. But really, I enjoyed listening to you. I'm happy for you, proud of you. Scott, congratulations on your promotable status. That's absolutely fantastic. And it's something that you never take for granted, but when it happens, you're so very, very thankful for it. I had a very similar conversation with one of my mentees from years and years ago, who I congratulated him on his promotable status this past Saturday at down in Petersburg, Virginia. When I gave General Brunson, I said, partner, I'm really, really proud of you. And he was recalling a time when he was a young captain, and I gave him some advice very similar to something that I heard you say there, and he recalled that. And so the points that you make all these folks on this net, they are remembering what you said. And so between you and Word there, the points that you made, important words and important points, and they will certainly make a difference. I think everyone who listened to you, the two of you, from the questions to also the information that you put out, will benefit from this experience. So congratulations, and let me thank the both of you who were certainly in positions that are pretty demanding, and I understand it, but you took time to do this, and that's important. And you will never regret the time that you've taken, because somewhere down the road, one of those who have listened to the things you've said will come back and say, sir, ma'am, what you said made a difference in my career, in my life, and how I went about doing my job, serving our nation and serving our institution. So good on you. Again, thanks to the Huachuca Rocks for including me, and you all continue to do what you do to take care of yourselves, your formations. And as I'm an old infantryman say, just keep on improving the foxhole. Wherever you are as your foxhole, you work every day to make it better. And you make it better by ensuring that your teammates are performing to the best they can. And when all do that, when all work to the benefit and the betterment of their teammate, just think of the power. The entire team is being lifted and you right along with it. And so congratulations, well done. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to say hello to you. Stay motivated, stay focused. Cool.
Oh, thank
Yes,
you
sir.
so much, sir. Thank you so much. All right, we're gonna close out this session. Colonel Ward and I are hang around for a little while just in case there are any questions. But thank you to every single person that joined in person and virtual. And I know we are recording this so that those that could not attend will be able to watch later on. We are always available. We pride ourselves on our availability and our commitment to informing, making sure again folks are making those informed decisions. Thank you all so much and have an awesome day for the edge of the frontier, always up front. Can you mute me?